The arrival of Halloween season certainly stirs inside all of us the need to get frightened, inside the warmness of our homes, curled up with a pet or a partner, allowing the allure of haunted places or a giant mutated beetle to curdle our senses, knowing that we're safe and that's all inside the screen. But what if I were to tell you that at times the unnatural thrills associated with death spill beyond the cinema frames and movie sets? For your viewing and listening pleasure, I have collected 10 instances of real-life disturbances or misfortunes that have come upon film sets and cast, directors or even crew members, this way blurring the lines between what is scripted and what's not, thus hinting at the presence of hauntings, curses, or simply tragic happenstance. It's important to note that this classification is informal and not tied to any numerical ranking. Rather, it serves to shed light on these eerie occurrences and their grim aftermath. Number 1. The Exorcist. It's only fitting to begin this list with one of the most renowned horror films of all time, The Exorcist. Ellen Burstyn, who portrays the mother Chris MacNeil, detailed the terrifying incident in which a fire burned a significant portion of the 1973 horror film set to the ground. The serious fire, thought to have been caused by a pigeon flying into a light box, destroyed the MacNeil home and put the production on hiatus for 6 weeks. But despite destroying the interiors depicting the MacNeil family's home, it somehow left the bedroom of the possessed Regan, played by Linda Blair, inexplicably untouched. Some people claim that the film's subject matter, which deals with demonic possession, supposedly invited malevolent forces onto the set. However, many of these claims have been, of course, debunked or attributed to mere coincidence. Number 2. The Omen. The set of The Omen was definitely harassed by a multitude of grim incidents. For starters, writer David Seltzer was on a plane that was struck by lightning. Lead actor Gregory Peck also had a booked flight but cancelled at the last minute, later finding out that the plane he was scheduled to be on crashed with no survivors. Also, the stuntman standing in for Peck during the famous rabbit dog scene was actually attacked by Rottweilers that bit through the protective gear he was wearing. In another instance, a zookeeper who had to tame baboons on set was mauled to death by a lion the day after completing their work. Most tragically, though, after filming was completed, special effects director John Richardson and his assistant Liz Moore were involved in a serious car accident. Moore was decapitated in an incident that almost mirrored one of The Omen's most disturbing scenes. The 2006 remake also had its share of unusual occurrence, albeit a non-fatal one. After spending an entire day of shooting the infamous birthmark scene, director John Moore claims nearly all of the resulting footage was inexplicably lost. An accident in the processing lab destroyed 13,500 feet of film, an unheard-of loss on most film sets that Moore described as disturbingly shocking, which left lab technicians baffled and almost on the verge of tears. Number 3. The Poltergeist Trilogy. The Poltergeist film series are shrouded with a lens of creepiness and disturbing facts that make you wonder about the lines between on-screen versus real-life horror and tragedy. The very fact that producers of the film chose to use real dead bodies as props as opposed to buying fake plastic dummies, simply because it was cheaper, makes the whole thing quite disturbing and morally dubious, to say the least. It's also often associated with a so-called curse, due to the premature deaths of several cast members. Dominique Dunn, who portrayed Dana, was brutally strangled outside her home by her then-former partner John Thomas Sweeney. During this vicious assault, the perpetrator left her brain dead. 5 days later, she was removed from life support and died, cutting short a brilliant career and leaving behind scores of shocked and angry loved ones. Heather O'Rourke, who plays the role of little Carol Ann, also was marred by tragedy. She died at the young age of 12 years old by a then misdiagnosed illness, what is believed now to have been because of a long battle with Crohn's disease. Number 4. Twilight Zone, the movie. Tragedy struck the set of this 80s sci-fi flick when director John Landis, who had cut corners unsafely, proceeded with a stunt in windy conditions. When a helicopter spiraled out of control, it came crashing down right onto the precise position where actor Vic Morrow and two child stars, Micah Din-Lee, 7, and Renee Shin-Yi Chen, 6, were killed by the whirring blades and falling debris. The incident, which saw Landis acquitted of manslaughter charges, led to greater regulations in on-set safety. Filmmaker Steven Spielberg co-produced Twilight Zone the movie with Landis, but he broke off their friendship following the accident. Spielberg reportedly emphasized the importance of safety in filmmaking, stating, quote, "No movie is worth dying for." Number 5. Rosemary's Baby. Rosemary's Baby may be one of the most unfortunate movies ever made, or better said, is one of the most tragedy-fused films ever to be made. The first unlucky soul was Polish composer Krzysztof Komeda. Details of his death are still scarce, but Polanski told it this way. In autumn of 1968, then 37-year-old Komeda was roughhousing at a party when he fell off a rocky escarpment and into a 4-month coma, the very same affliction Levin's witches used to kill Rosemary's suspicious friend in the book. Komeda never regained consciousness and died in Poland the following year. In April 1969, producer William Castle was suddenly stricken with severe kidney stones. While delirious in the hospital, he hallucinated scenes from the film and was said to have yelled the following words: "Rosemary, for God's sake, drop the knife." Castle recovered, just barely, and never made a Hollywood hit again. Then there's Polanski's fate, told and retold into legend, even by him. He had relocated to California alongside his new girlfriend, actress Sharon Tate, who was fresh off her first movie role as a witch in The Eye of the Devil, just before filming began. She had aspired for the lead role in Rosemary's Baby, but Paramount cast Mia Farrow. Tate instead hung around the set almost inconspicuous in the background of Rosemary's young people-only party scene, becoming increasingly obsessed with the occult. Many years later, a friend quoted her in a print as having said, "The devil is beautiful, most people think he's ugly, but he's not." Polanski last saw Tate in July 1969, noting in his autobiography a quote, grotesque thought he had at the time that he would never see her again. Tate was brutally murdered on August 8, 1969 by the Manson family, as was their unborn son, all while Rosemary's Baby still lingered in theaters. Number 6. The Amityville Horror. The most ominous thing about this movie is that it's based on the real-life brutal crimes of Ronald DeFeo Jr., who fatally shot his parents and his 4 siblings in their Long Island home in 1974. But the creepiest thing of all is the fact that both movies that were directly inspired by this event ended up having strange paranormal occurrences happening on set. James Brolin, the star of the original 1979 movie, had second thoughts about accepting the role. Still, he agreed to star in it, and soon enough, while reading a particularly scary part of the script, witnessed pants falling from a clothes hanger for no apparent reason. Falling Pants, however, is no match to the events that unraveled on the set of the 2005 remake, starring Ryan Reynolds. During filming near a boathouse, a literal dead body washed up on the surface by the set just when they were about to start shooting. Also, Ryan Reynolds and other cast and crew members all claim to have woken up at 3:15 a.m., which would have been around the time the true killings happened. Reynolds, however, would go ahead and explain that the waking up part was probably a subconscious thing, being that close to the original horrific story in various ways. The mind can play tricks on you. Tricks or no tricks, however, there were also reports of lights turning on inside the house when nobody was there. Number 7. Maximum Overdrive. The set of this 1986 sci-fi horror always seemed to be stained by misfortune. As one of its stars, Laura Harrington, strangely put it, quote, "You always felt like someone was going to die on the set." Noting that no one actually died while filming, turns out Laura was right about the sense of danger that lingered. Because of its plotline, multiple crew members were put in dangerous situations, with one cinematographer, Armando Nanuzzi, losing an eye in a lawnmower accident. As if that wasn't enough, the set was also hit by a hurricane in the middle of production. Luckily, no one was seriously injured by the storm, just utterly unsettled. Number 8. The Possession. This 2012 horror movie about a girl who buys an antique box at a yard sale, unaware that the box hosts a malicious ancient spirit, has had its bizarre occurrences on the set of its filming. In an interview for The Hollywood Reporter, the star of the movie, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, even though a skeptic when it comes to the supernatural, admits of strange and unaccounted-for instances that happened during production that left him feeling a bit uneasy. Morgan would recall lights exploding mid-take and feeling cold bursts of wind on a closed, non-drafty set. He also said that it would always happen in the middle of shooting key scenes, and not when doing scenes or takes that didn't have a big story impact. But the scariest thing actually happened after filming. Morgan states that the storage where they put all the props for further use or in case of a reshoot was engulfed in a fire that seemingly happened without a cause or an explanation. And apparently, after a thorough investigation, no signs of arson or electrical fire was found. Among the key props destroyed in the fire was the imitation debug box used during filming. It's also worth noting that one of the most frightening crucial scenes in the film takes place outside what looks like a storage facility. Number 9. The Conjuring. The Conjuring movies are full of sinister jump scares and dark malicious entities. But what really makes the series scary is that the films are based on the real-life investigations of Ed and Lorraine Warren. The couple investigated hauntings and possessions, which makes these behind-the-scenes stories even creepier. One of the most bizarre things to happen on set occurred when the Perron family, the real-life family the film is based on, finally visited. Originally, they were too afraid to visit, but finally they did. Crew members say a sudden strong wind started whirling behind the family, yet somehow trees across from the family didn't move an inch. Director James Wan and stars Vera Farmiga and Joy King all experienced strange things too. A few days after the Perron family visit and the wind incident, Wan stayed up late in his office working. Suddenly, his dog began barking at an invisible entity. Farmiga also claims to have seen, quote, 3 digital claw marks on her computer screen moments after accepting the role. Joy King, just a child at the time, had the worst of it. Like her on-screen mother, she allegedly began waking up with mysterious bruises on her body after just a couple of weeks of shooting. Number 10. The Nun. The Conjuring universe has had its share of spooky, bizarre occurrences, both on and off-screen, as we've seen, and it wouldn't be any different for this 2018 gothic supernatural horror. Director Corin Hardy has claimed that while filming a scene in the narrow hallway of a real Romanian castle, he entered a side room to allow a camera to pass. When he entered the confined dark space, he saw 2 men sitting at the back of the room and assumed they were crew members. Corin stayed in the room for one take and, upon completion, turned to speak with the men. But the men were no longer there. Needless to say, that must have been quite terrifying. As we conclude this journey through the shadowy corridors of horror film production, it becomes evident that the boundary between fact and fiction can sometimes blur in the world of cinema. Whether it's the perplexing tragedies that have befallen the Poltergeist franchise, the eerie experiences on the set of the Amityville Horror, or the unsettling occurrences tied to cursed objects like the debug box in The Possession, these stories continue to captivate our imagination. Regardless of one's beliefs in curses or the paranormal, these events serve as a reminder that, even in the most meticulously controlled environments, the unexpected can still send shivers down our spines, leaving us forever curious about the unexplained. Thank you for watching.